Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Before we start with the practice questions for the day, a quick gentle reminder. Byjus Exam Prep IAS has already launched its official Telegram channel. If you have not yet joined the channel, please do join so that you get all the current affairs related updates. Let's look into the first question. Information under the Right to Information Act 2005 includes which of the following? Records, emails, opinions, logbook, samples? The answer to this is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to the right to information. When we speak about section 2 of it, it has information under which it includes records, documents, memos, emails, opinions, advices, press releases, circulars, orders, logbooks, contracts, reports, papers, samples, models, data material held in any electric form, and information relating to any private body which can be assessed by a public authority under any other law for the time being in force. So if such information is sought by the people, that information will have to be given by the public authority. So who is the public authority? It means any authority or body or institution of self-government established or constituted by or under the constitution. So if there is an institution which has established under the constitution of India by any other law made by the parliament, so if there is a law which has been drafted by the parliament, so there is an institution or a body, this body will have to give the information by any other law made by the state legislature. The state legislature passes a law, and this law clearly points out that there is one of the body under the legislation by notification issued or order made by the appropriate government, and includes body owned, controlled or substantially financed, non-government organization substantially financed directly or indirectly by funds provided by the appropriate government. For all these bodies, they have to give the information if it is sought out by the people. So the information includes all these that we just discussed. Added to it, it includes the record. What is this record? Any document, manuscript and file, any microfilm, microfiche and facsimile copy of a document, any production of image or images embodied in such microfilm, any other material produced by a computer or any other device. Right to information means the information accessible under this act which is held by or under the control of public authority, and includes the right to inspection of work, documents and records, taking notes, extracts or certified copies of documents or records, taking certified samples of material, obtaining information in any form in the form of discs, floppies, tapes, video cassettes or in any other electronic mode, or through printouts where such information is stored in a computer or in any other device. All of these includes the information which can be very important from the preliminary examination point of view. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which amongst the following plants is are categorized as critically endangered in the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species? Meizotropis pellita, Fritillora cirrhosa, Dactyloris hattegiria. The answer to this is one only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to 3 Himalayan medicinal plants enter IUCN Red List. So if we speak about Meizotropis pellita, it is called as patwa, and this happens to be critically endangered. When we speak about Fritillarius cirrhosa, this happens to be vulnerable, and Salampunja, which is Dactyloris hattegiria, is endangered. So which among these is critically endangered? It is only Meizotropis pellita. So the answer to this would be A, which is nothing but one only. Now let's look at some of the key facts with respect to these plants. When we speak about Meizotropis pellita, it is commonly known as patwa. It is a perennial shrub with restricted distribution that is endemic to Uttarakhand. This can be very important from the preliminary examination point of view. So it is endemic to Uttarakhand. The essential oil extracted from the leaves of the species species possess strong antioxidants and can be a promising natural substitute for synthetic antioxidants in pharmaceutical industries, and this species is threatened by deforestation, habitat fragmentation and forest fires, which is why it is placed under critically endangered of the IUCN Red List. Then what we have is Fritillera cirrhosa, which is nothing but Himalayan fritillary. It is perennial bulbous herb. In China, the species is used for the treatment of bronchial disorders and pneumonia. The plant is also a strong cough suppressant and source of expectorant drugs in traditional Chinese medicine. And when it comes to Dactylorhiza hategeria, it is threatened by habitat loss, livestock grazing, deforestation and climate change. It is extensively used in Ayurveda, Siddha and Unani and other alternative systems of medicine to cure dysentery, gastritis, chronic fever, cough and stomach aches. It is perennial tuberous species endemic to the Hindu Kush and Himalayan ranges of Afghanistan, Bhutan, China, India, Nepal and Pakistan. These are some of the important facts with respect to these plants and could probably be asked in your preliminary examination. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which amongst the following statements is the best description of supplementary grant? It is granted for meeting an unexpected demand upon the resources of India when on account of magnitude or indefinite character of the service, the demand cannot be stated with the details ordinarily given in a budget. It is granted when the amount authorized by the Parliament through the Appropriation Act for a particular service for the current financial year is found to be insufficient for that year. It is granted when a need has arisen during the current financial year for additional expenditure upon some new service not contemplated in the budget for that year. It is granted when money has been spent on any service during a financial year in excess of the amount granted for that service in the budget for that year. It is voted by the Lok Sabha after the financial year. Which amongst this is the best description of supplementary grant? The answer to this is B. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Indian Express makes a reference to the supplementary grant. Let us try and understand what is this supplementary grant. When you look into the definition, it says it is granted when the amount authorized by the Parliament through the Appropriation Act for a particular service for the current financial year is found to be insufficient for that year. Let's say we have the Government of India which has come up with one of the schemes A. This scheme A is given permission by the Parliament where 1000 crores is sanctioned for that particular scheme. So the Government of India spends this 1000 crores, but all of a sudden it feels that this 1000 crores is not enough. So another 250 crores is what the government asks for. So for a particular welfare scheme which is already mentioned in the budget, if the money that is sanctioned by the Parliament is not enough, so in addition to the existing budget, if it requires some money for that financial year, the extra money that is given to the government is what is called as the supplementary grant. So in supplementary grant, there is a welfare scheme which is already quoted by the government. It is part of the proposal of the budget and the Parliament has already accepted. Then what we have is called as the additional grant. This is when additional expenditure is given for the new service not contemplated in the budget. For example, Scheme A was discussed as part of the budget, but we have Scheme B. This Scheme B is not part of the budget, but there is an exigency or an emergency which requires the government to come up with a new scheme or a program in this particular backdrop. It was not part of the budget, but there is an emergency, and if there is a new service that is added and if the money is sanctioned, that is what is called as the additional grant. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements. The concept of single citizenship is borrowed from the British Constitution. The citizenship of India can be acquired in 4 ways. Citizenship ends if the citizen has been ordinarily resident out of India for 7 years continuously. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is 1 and 3 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Indian Express makes a reference to the citizenship. Let us try and understand what are these statements. When you look into the first statement, the concept of single citizenship is borrowed from the British Constitution. This statement is right. What are the other concepts that are imported from United Kingdom? One is the parliamentary government, rule of law, legislative procedure, single citizenship, cabinet system, prerogative rich, parliamentary privileges, as well as bicameralism. All these concepts have been imported from the British Constitution or the UK Constitution. This is one. The second statement reads, the citizenship of India can be acquired in four ways. This is a wrong statement. Why? It is not four, but instead it is five ways. What are these five ways? One, it includes birth. The other happens to be descent. The third is through registration. Fourth is through naturalization. And fifth is through the incorporation of territory. So it is not four ways, but instead it is five ways through which a person can acquire a citizenship in India. So the second statement is wrong. When you look into the third statement, citizenship ends if the citizen has been ordinarily resident out of India for 7 years continuously, and this statement is right. Since the first and the third statement are right, second statement is wrong. The answer to this would be C, which is 1 and 3 only. Now let's look into the next practice question. The world's second tallest statue in sitting pose of Ramanuja was inaugurated by the Prime Minister of India at Hyderabad recently. Which one of the following statements correctly represents the teachings of Ramanuja? The best means of salvation was devotion. Vedas are eternal, self-existent and wholly authoritative. Logical arguments were meant for the highest bliss. Salvation was to be obtained through mediation. Which among this is the teaching of Ramanujacharya? The answer to this is A, which means the best means of salvation was devotion. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2022. Now let's look at some of the key facts with respect to Ramanujacharya. He promoted social justice and equality in India. He is well known for being the main advocate of Vedanta subschool of Vishishtadvaita, the non-dualistic school of Vedanta philosophy. He produced various Vedic scripture commentaries as well as 9 scriptures. These are known as Navaratnas. The Sri Bhashya or the true commentary by Ramanuja on the Vedanta Sutras and Bhagavad Gita are two of his most significant works. His other works include Vedanta Sara and the Vedanta Deepa. Additionally, he emphasized the need to respect nature and not overuse it, which is what we call today as sustainable development. He resurrected the Bhakti movement. Various Bhakti schools of thought were inspired by his sermons. We have Annamacharya, Bhakta Ramdas, Tyagaraja, Kabir and Mirabai are said to have drawn inspiration from him. These are some of the important facts with respect to Ramanujacharya. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is Wildlife Protection Amendment Bill. We have the Rajya Sabha, which has recently passed the Wildlife Protection Amendment Bill. This bill basically amends the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 and basically increases the number of species protected under the law. So the bill seeks to conserve and protect wildlife through better management of protected areas and rationalized schedules which list out species under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. The bill seeks better management of protected areas, provides for certain permitted activities like grazing, or movement of livestock and bona fide use of drinking and household water by the local communities. This is an advantage. This is beneficial for the local tribal communities as it inserts an explanation to provide all the permitted activities. For example, these people would be able to conduct grazing activities for their animal. Movement of livestock would be allowed as well, and if they wish to, they can also make use of the water for the drinking as well as the household purposes. But there are two major issues with respect to this Wildlife Protection Amendment Bill. One is to do with the elephants, the other is to do with animals called as vermin. What is to do with the elephants? When you look into section 43 of the Principal Act, it basically allows for transfer or transport of a captive elephant for a religious or any other purpose by a person having a valid certificate of ownership. So the section says any other purpose, but what is this any other purpose is yet not defined. This is very vague and it also has the potential of of encouraging commercial trade of elephants, their captivity, their brutality is one of the major concerns. The second is to do with vermin. What exactly is the issue? As of now, when you look at section 62, it is the central government which has been making use of section 62 to declare certain species as vermin. So whenever a particular species is declared as vermin, then that particular species can be culled, which means it can be killed as well. For example, nilgais were declared as vermin across 20 districts in Bihar back in the year 2015, and the center also cited large scale destruction of agriculture as the grounds for declaring monkeys as vermin in Shimla back in the year 2019. But we have the Kerala government which has been making requests to the central government to declare wild boars as the vermin, but the central government is not declaring wild boars as the vermin, and as a result, what we have is an issue where Kerala legislature is asking for the declaration of this species as vermin, but the central government is not allowing. So what we have is the realm of center state politics coming into the picture. So this is where certain states want this permission also to be granted to the states, and at the same time some states also want this power only to be granted to the central government. So there is conflict between the center and the state. This article further makes a mention of controlling the vermins. How is it? Let's say for example we have the forest. The forest, let's say, is spread for about 2 to 3 kilometers. There is an end point to this particular forest. At the end of this forest, what we can actually do is come up with electrical fencing. So when we come up with electrical fencing, this will prevent these animals from entering the human habitat, which means this particular species will not cross the fence, and ultimately it will not have enough amount of food, and it is just restricted to this forest area. This can be initiated, but what if there is a particular village where this fencing is not allowed? So this particular species will come to another village. In that village where fencing is present, the animals would be protected, and at the same time there will be no human animal conflict. But what if there is no fencing and the animal moves to a different village? This will once again result in human animal conflict. This cannot be thought of because one, it can come to another village, and two, the animals may die out of hunger. This is one issue. The second issue is what we can do is create a buffer zone. So let's say this is where the forest ends. So this is where the human habitat starts. So we can have a buffer zone. In this buffer zone, the animals, they come up, they also eat their food and they go back, but then they can also enter the human habitats as well. This also cannot be thought of. So whenever there is this animal entering the human habitat, one more thing that we can look at is providing compensation to the people. So for all those who have lost their crops, compensation can be thought of. Still, we do not have a proper mandate about this human animal conflict, and as a result, since there is absence of a legal option, farmers go about hunting these species continuously, and there is dropping or the dwindling of these numbers. Is what is this article all about? It is this that we have to understand with respect to this topic. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.